Welcome to the Convince Me podcast, where we're on a mission to convince you to step out of your gaming comfort zone and try something new. With that said, let's get to convincing. Last episode, Darren and I accidentally chose two Souls likes. I did Ender Lily's Quietus of the Nights, and he did Nine Souls. And it was a very interesting conversation because I didn't realize that my game, Ender Lilies, was never on PS Plus. It was a PS Plus monthly offering at some point, I think last August. And so that changed the conversation because Darren decided that it was a game that if it goes on steep discount, maybe. And Nine Souls does sound interesting, although Sekiro makes my head sweat, yes, but also my palms sweat. This episode, I will be convincing Darren to try Sayonara Wild Hearts, and Darren will be convincing me to try Eldest Souls. Oh, look at that. Another Souls-like.
At least Souls is spelled differently than my Nine Souls.
That's fair.
Because, that counts.
Makes it better.
Sorta.
And if you're watching online, don't mind this cup. My wife has been converted to not being a supporter of the Steelers anymore. She is now a full-on Eagles fan. Although not really, because she doesn't give a crap either way. But this cup is left over. I needed water because I ran earlier today, and I hated every second of it. But, what are you going to do?
Probably not drink out of a Steelers cup.
It's the biggest, cup that isn't a glass cup that we have, man. Like, what do you want?
I want you to have a Yeti or a Stanley or something.
If I were to get something like that, I'd get an Awala, to be completely honest.
The Corksicle stuff is pretty decent too. And there's another one that's a Stanley knockoff. I want to say it's not Igloo, but it's something in that same vein of cold imagery. Which I mean those seem pretty decent as well.
Dick.
I just like Stanley because they fit in my cup holder in my car, so I can actually go places with them.
That's fair.
I'm certainly not a brand loyalist as far as that goes.
I'm sure everybody's loving this conversation about water vehicles.
hey, stay hydrated.
Dude, nobody our age does. Like, you do, but, dude, if you ask the average millennial, they're going to be like, what's water? Well, what do you mean I'm supposed to drink it?
I mean, we got to stay hydrated, be in our lane. It's all good. Fair. It's important.
But running sucks.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
But before we get to the convincing segment, I see that we have an interesting question for this week. Darren, what gift have you given us for the question of the week?
The gift of thought-provoking, right? Because, I mean, we had that conversation a few weeks back about, what protagonists' world would you like to be in, or who would you like to be as a protagonist? And it got me wondering, right? So if you were to be placed into an adventure of your choice, now I want you to actually pick the adventure. So this can be something that you've seen played out in any any form of media. This can be a video game, this can be an anime, this could be a movie franchise. But I want you to pick 3 characters from any form of media that would back you up on that adventure. We'll say that you are simply like the generic swordsman archetype that is the backbone of most RPG.
Sure.
So I want you to pick 3 characters, and I want you to pick the world and adventure that you would be in.
Okay. So every adventuring party has to have a healer.
Mm-hmm.
So I would
be careful, because we're going to learn a lot about you, methinks. So, no, go ahead.
I'm not going to lie. I'm between Rose from The Wrong Way to Use Healing Magic and I haven't seen enough episodes to have memorized his name, but the protagonist from
Mm,
an anime that I'm currently watching,
hmm.
the healer in the shadow. What is the full title of that show?
His name is Xenos,
Yes,
is what you're looking
Xenos
for.
from uh, the Brilliant Healer's New Life in the Shadows.
Mm,
So, for those who don't know, he is a healer who is fully unaware of how strong his healing capabilities actually are. And he also has incredible offense and defense. So he literally has the entire package of everything. So having him to back me up, I'm set. And
mm,
then I have only heard tale
hmm.
of this character because I watched a couple episodes. It's another anime, and it is the protagonist of Overlord backing me up. because
As your mage, I assume.
because I've heard that he's absolutely broken.
Hmm.
And so that is a healer, that is a mage. I'm a generic swordsman. Um,
Hmm.
and then what am I missing? Like a
Like a
hand to
tank,
hand
probably.
combatant? Yeah, tank.
A tank, a support if you
All
want
right,
something more of a dedicated
you ready?
support.
You
I
ready?
don't know. I don't know.
Honestly,
Uh-huh.
he's not a tank. Would our roles have to be like this is their role, or could I put a character and just shift them into that role?
No, I mean, you can they can be whatever you want. I mean,
Give me
it's
Janu.
your
Give me Janu.
ugh.
He has the capability of being infinitely strong.
So who did you actually choose for your healer?
Xenos. So Xenos, Janu,
Bruh,
and the protagonist from Overlord.
you have the most like boys trip party I've ever heard in my
Yes. Give me Final
those
Fantasy 15.
personalities, those people of culture who've seen Overlord, like the idea of Ainz Ulgaun and Jinnu in the same party makes me sick to my stomach.
Because of how frightening it
Not
is.
for not for party reasons, but because I can't see them interacting at all.
Without the world imploding.
No, just their personalities don't make sense to me.
That's not
Um,
my point. If I'm going on an adventure, I need to survive.
that's
We
true.
can handle the connections, the bond, the interactions as we go. That'll happen, right?
Yeah.
It's hard because let's be honest, we don't know a ton about Janu, right? We don't we
Well,
the show
anime
doesn't.
watcher doesn't know.
Anime watchers, I'm an anime watcher. I don't read the manga because I don't like to get ahead of animes and spoil myself for what's going to happen in the show. Although I've heard it doesn't really matter, but that's just my
Mhm,
personal preference. But
mhm.
we don't really know much about Janu's personality because really what he's doing is aura farming and getting stronger. We don't delve deep into his psyche. He had one goal and pursued that goal with fervor, and that's his personality. We don't really know much about him as a person. We just know he's cool.
Sure,
And so Xenos also
sure,
has a very similar, like, we don't really know much about him. He's just a really strong dude who just kind of exists and is oblivious to really everything around him. But I'm okay
sure,
with someone who is incredibly strong. It's a really strong party. You can't deny that.
sure.
As far as adventure, I'm trying to think of something
Yeah.
that wouldn't be too dangerous. Because, like, I don't want to
I
die.
mean, with your party though, I mean, do you think you would?
Probably not, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, we don't even know how strong Xenos is yet, but
that's
he's
fair.
not slight.
I think an adventure that would be fun is I'd probably go on like a mana adventure, just like a Trials of
Mhm.
Mana or something like that. Not Visions of Mana. For those who played Visions of Mana, Galley Day, it's given in bright tones, but the concept of what the game is and what your goal is dark. But
Sure.
the Trials of Mana has a very bright, vibrant world, and I had fun exploring it and doing the journey. You got to learn about the people you were with, and highly
Sure.
recommend Trials of Mana because it has a bunch of different. It's a short game, but it has a lot of different ways you can play because you choose 3 characters and your game, the story semi changes based on the 3 characters that you choose. So it's super cool. I think
Hmm.
I'd do something like that. I don't
Interesting.
know that I'd want to do a world ending threat because that's just stressful. Just give me something that's I don't think Trials of Mana. It's a JRPG. Of course, it had a world-ending threat.
Of
Um,
course it did.
I'd want to do something that doesn't have like the world is going to explode if you don't do this on time.
Sure.
I don't know. Like what are some games where it's just super low stakes? Like uh low stakes, because if it's a JRPG, it's going world ending. An Animal Crossing, that doesn't really, that party would be unnecessary in Animal Crossing, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
15 has world ending context, yeah.
Yeah.
7, the world's being drained of everything.
Huh. And the meteor.
Well, yes. It's just dire all around. Um, yeah, no, it's bumping. I'll go back to Trials. I think just the vibrant world that'd be fun to explore with really strong people. Yeah, there you
Sure.
go. Xenos. What's the protagonist from Overlord?
Eins
Ainz,
Ulgaun.
Xenos, Ainz, and Janu. Dang,
Hmm.
that's a squad. That's a squad.
So
All right, Darren.
it's interesting that you didn't pick a single video game character to go on a video game adventure.
You
Um,
didn't say video game adventure. You said adventure.
I know it's, but you picked a video game world and not a single of your characters for video game. It's just interesting. Um,
All right.
so
What you got?
obviously, for me, I have to bring Aerith as my healer
Fine.
because I mean, just everything about her, even every limit burst, is just so good. It's just so good. For my mage, I'm gonna go a little unorthodox here, and I'm gonna go from Rimuru from that time I got reincarnated as a slime because he is, for all
Ooh.
intents and purposes, a blue mage
Fair.
in the archetype of how you would go about playing a blue mage. So he has the ability of consuming and learning abilities from his enemies, in which case he's almost omnipotent. So I'm doing all right then, as far as that's concerned. I do want someone a little hardier as my tank, though, because Rimuru doesn't take a lot of hits. I don't want Aerith to take a lot of hits.
Oh, she would
I
get
don't.
classed.
Yeah. And so I want to go with potentially the stronger or the strongest tank-esque character I can think of. And I mean, I feel like the obvious answer is the main character from Shield Hero, because I mean that's his whole archetype is
Sure.
to be the shield wielder. However, my heart says that the best defense is a good offense, right?
Why do you think I went Janu, dog? Youngin's got it
Right.
all.
So if the best defense is a good offense, and I'm going on an adventure, and I want somebody reasonably potent. And so at that point, I mean, I don't know if I necessarily want another protagonist
Hmm.
because there's so many really good other protagonists. But I mean, do you go Erza from Fairy Tale, who
Doesn't
can
she
be a
get
bit of anything?
doesn't she get glassed in like every fight she's in?
Well, yeah, but she's always going against the strongest of whomever. So I mean, that's kind of her purpose is to be the pawn that gets waylaid on. Um, do I go somebody like Naruto, who's fast and can give energy to others?
I
Do
like
you go?
speed tanks. Agility tanks are a very interesting concept to me because I feel like that's not something you see too often. You see just straight up like big 8 damage sponge tank. You don't
Mhm.
see mobility tanks too often.
It's true, and you like the idea of the mobile threat. Or do I forego the concept of a tank altogether and simply just ride into the sunset of DPS, which is always what I've done
It
in pretty
is.
much
It is.
anything ever, ever. In which case, then, I mean, you want, oh man, I watch too many things
You are
and
so
I've
many
played a
things.
lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so, so at that point, I guess then I'm gonna go Shinra from Fire Force,
Haven't seen it, so
who
I don't know.
literally becomes strong enough to create an entire universe in order to complete his goals.
See, another idea that comes into my mind, but I can't dive deeper on it because it would be a spoiler.
Hmm.
So the only thing I will say is there would be a good case to make for a character from Clair Obscur.
Yeah, yes, there would. One in particular,
Yes. Um.
and not one that many people would think, but one in particular.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then again, that's only potent, so we are aware of within the context of a canvas. So
Yeah.
we don't know how prevalent that is in the real world as of yet. As far as the adventure that I would go on, honestly, I like the overthrow the dictator types of campaigns. So I think that with the party that I've assembled, I think potentially, oh man, my gut says the Black Clover story.
Black Clover was floating in my mind.
The Black Clover story feels like it would make the most sense just for what I'm looking for. That being said, um,
You'd be on protagonist side then.
yeah, 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 for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Another character that comes into mind for tank.
I mean
Say
Yami.
no. Say your. So use Black Clover as like your like what you'd go with.
I think I think so. Just because I also think that that world as a whole, because I'm thinking of what happens after you've completed it, right? I think that world as a whole might be the most fun to just exist in.
Yeah, that's fair. Um, but something that I didn't even think about is I could go to comics because comics just get.
Well, yeah, and I mean at that point then my party is the one above all, the one below all. And I mean like I'm good, now I'm
Well,
okay with multiversal scenarios. I wanted it to be a bit more like even keel.
I
You know
wouldn't
what I
choose
mean?
that. I would choose Sentry. The only issue
Sure.
is that there is another side that could potentially backfire. Do you know, comically and honestly, now more than non-comically, how strong Sentry is?
Nope.
He has the power of a million exploding suns.
Oh, all right.
I'm not sure who's seeing that. I'm gonna be honest,
All
but
right.
we,
I
in
mean,
case those listening haven't noticed, Darren and I really like power and strength.
it's true. God, I my finalists for tank were also like Escanor from Seven Deadly Sins, because dude
Yeah,
is just a freak, but he's
but
only at his freakishest during the noonday sun in
but
direct sunlight.
all of my traveling buddies are fully capable of handling most things completely on their own.
It's true,
Like my
but I have
healer,
Rimuru, so I'm good.
I don't need my healer to I don't have to worry about protecting him. Young can protect himself.
It's true.
But yes, that is that's an interesting question because I feel like there's so many things that we don't know about that could be
Mm-hmm.
really good answers. I don't know all media. There's things that I do know that I didn't even think about because,
Mm-hmm.
that's just how it works. And the strength is it's hard because power scaling means that strength is a nebulous thing because
Yeah.
you can assume what these characters can do. You can assume
Mm-hmm.
that one protagonist from an anime is stronger than another protagonist from an anime, but like you
We
don't
don't know.
actually know
Right.
because a lot of people when they talk about weakest character in anime, they immediately go to like Krillin and like
Oh,
characters like that, but
which is
Krillin
crazy.
would murk so many people in so many other universes,
Oh yeah,
and it like people
absolutely.
that's people don't think about that because Krillin is weak in the context of a show, but not
Mm-hmm.
in actuality.
Krillin Solo's entire universe is like low div,
Yeah, for sure.
which it's crazy. Destructo Disc can cut a planet in half. Like not a lot
Yaga
of
just
places can
casually did
survive
it.
being cut in half.
He
You
just
know what I
casually
mean?
did that, dude.
It's wild. So I mean, like technically speaking, are we dumb for not having our whole party just be Goku, Vegeta, Gohan? Maybe, but that doesn't
Yeah,
sound
Beast
fun to
Gohan.
me. Well, Beast Gohan is supposedly the strongest.
Mm.
Although I've read some tables that put Orange Piccolo stronger than Ultra Ego Vegeta, but I know nothing
Vegeta's
about
always
that.
getting outstripped, man. Poor dude.
Well, I'm glad it's by Piccolo though. It's about time.
Yeah, that's fair. And
But you know what else it's
that's
about time for?
oh
It's about time to talk about some games of the week.
okay okay. I have an interesting one this week. It
Hmm.
was not what I expected it to be.
Okay.
The game that I chose this week was Sayonara Wild Hearts by Simogo. It's a Swedish developer. Made a few games. The one that stood out to me because it's one that I actually want that's on sale on the PS Days of Play sale that's happening right now is called Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, which is a puzzle game. Like I think it's a first-person shooter, like a sniper puzzle game. It looks really interesting. I want to try it.
Hmm.
But this game is about heartbreak and about okay. As I've said before, I'm dumb. So like when games try to be flowery and abstract and metaphorical with their concepts and allegories, I don't pick up on it until I read up about it, and then I'm like, oh, that's what that was. And
Hmm.
so this one was kind of in the same vein. Granted, it's because I didn't really know what to expect when I played it. But before I get there, let's start with how the game starts.
Hmm.
It begins with a voiceover about a world where three divine creatures watch over the world, but their harmony was stolen, and so they created a heroine from their broken hearts to hopefully fix everything. It takes like a minute or two to get into the gameplay, and it starts as this protagonist is I think it was leaving a coffee shop, I believe, or a tea shop at the beginning. That might have been in the opening movie. I can't remember the order of events, but the story is told as you start the first level and there's a synthy version of Claire de Lune playing.
Okay.
And so the game clearly had an Ocarina of Time influence because your protagonist is sleeping on a bed and this chromatic butterfly, like wireframe butterfly, is flying through the air, goes into your room. And at the beginning of Ocarina of Time, Navi is trying to wake Link up, and she's like flying up and down and freaking out to wake him up. This butterfly is doing the same thing, trying to wake your protagonist up.
Hmm.
And so you leave the house and you basically get tossed onto a moving highway and it looks like a musical. Like it's the note sheet from Rock Band and Guitar Hero. There's a name for the thing that scrolls. I'm blanking on what it is. Um, I can't remember what it is. But you basically are thrown onto that. It's coming at you top down, and you control the character, and you have to move her to collect hearts that give you points. And
Mhm.
it's similar to. Do you recall? Because I think you did. Do you recall the bonus levels from Sonic the Hedgehog 2 where you have to do 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 do, and then Sonic is in 3D, like going around in a circle to try and get the rings
Yeah.
to get the Chaos Emerald.
Oh yeah.
So
Absolutely.
it's basically
They did that in Sonic
that.
Heroes as well.
Yes, it's basically that, but you're collecting hearts, and it's you're collecting them to the music, and each level gives you different things that build towards eventually fighting a boss. The second level
Hmm.
has you on a flying card. The third level you're on a motorcycle, and it starts throwing challenges at you because there are obstacles that you can hit. Your penalty is going back a few seconds to try and do that segment again. And everything is to the rhythm of the music that's playing. So there were pop synth artists that they got to do the music for this game. They are artists I've never heard of. Like, I may know them by their music. I don't know,
Hmm.
but uh, it's Swedish pop music basically,
Oh.
and it's a short game. I finished it, and according to how long to beat, you can beat this game if you don't mess up in about an hour and a half, because the length of the game is the length of the album for this music. You're basically playing through a pop synth album in this game,
Interesting.
because each level is a different song. There's definitely motifs that come back for sure, but it's really just an hour and a half long album of levels. It's simple. It's really easy to get into because if you only have a few minutes to play, you can play a level, try and get your highest score. There's bronze, silver, and gold. If you get all the golds in the maps and you unlock a bonus, I didn't get it because let me tell you, it wasn't easy. Um, Unlocking the game unlocks album mode where you literally play the entire thing straight through with no breaks. And so it was a game about this protagonist going through heartbreak, because as you go through you meet these bosses, like the for example the fourth level was a boss level where you had to time button presses to the beat to essentially attack the enemy or block their attacks at you, and you go on a musical motorcycle chase to beat them, followed by the next level where it's an extended mix of flying where it becomes a 3D where you're controlling your character around the entirety of the screen instead of just coming at you from the top to the bottom. And it also changes to a side-scrolling shooter where there isn't really a point where you press X to fire. Like, it's not like mash X to fire. The character either auto fires or there's a button prompt to shoot at the enemy. It's not designed to be like, it's not Galaga, right? It's not.
Hmm.
I think Type R is another one. It's not designed to be those. It is designed to just get on rhythm with the beat, play through the level. Each level only takes like 2 to 3, maybe 4 minutes, and it's just a quick pick it up and play. And some of the levels are pretty challenging. There is an option, and this is for if you're a hardcore gamer and you have a significant other who might be tempted to try games, likes music, likes rhythm games, there is a setting where if a part is too difficult, or if you keep hitting a wall, hitting an obstacle, having to go back, you can skip that portion of the level and go to the next one. So there are things built in to just it's low. I can't say low stress because some of the things that you had to do were really trippy and pretty difficult, but there's a lot of ties to tarot cards. So each boss is a tarot card, and you when you look at it from the perspective of her going through a breakup, you see that it's about her learning to accept herself and face whatever these bosses represent. Everybody's wearing masks, and by the time you reach the end of the game, the mask isn't really needed anymore. So you get the idea that the point of the game is she's putting on this mask to fight her grief, to face whatever it is she needs to face, and then by the end she realizes, hey, I just need to be me now. I need to be who I am. You don't get the context of why the breakup happened, who initiated it. You don't get any context of that. You just learn that she is trying to begin to accept who she is, whatever her faults may be. And so it's a very quick game that has a pretty decent message that I think a lot of people should hear. And yeah, it surprised me because it wasn't what I expected at all.
Yeah, no, not at all what I would have expected you to say. Um, if the game revolves around the music, was the music good? I mean, I know that's pretty subjective because it's a
I
whole genre, but it's
I think so. I think if you are into I man, I listen to a lot of genres, but it's synth pop. Like I can't think of a comparable artist to
I
the
guess
music here.
I'll put it like this. Did you find that there were any songs that you sat there and thought I could potentially sit down and just listen to this on my own?
If I was trying to mellow out and just
Okay.
have a good, not nebulous at all way of putting it, is if I was looking for a vibe.
Mm,
I think these songs could fit that niche. The art
was
style is kind of trippy at times. I would say, do you know the art style of the Wii Fit trainer?
mm-hmm.
The characters kind of look like that with like
Oh,
wireframe, like
interesting.
colorful wireframe maps that you're going through, and it's really colorful. Actually, the color scheme of this game is the same color scheme as our podcast. The
Oh, geez.
neon pink and blue color scheme is the color scheme of this game.
Okay. Huh. That's both like interesting and super off-putting at the same time. Okay.
I,
Um,
I understand that.
yeah. I don't know what to make of this game.
It's really bizarre. Like, let me tell you. So I pulled up the album on Spotify. 26 songs, 54 minutes. Came out in 2019. The first 9 songs are averaging 2 million views.
Okay.
So like
That's pretty
the
cool.
music isn't bad if it's averaging those kinds of views.
I feel like I wish this song had come out in, or this game had come out in, let's say, 20, like end of 2014, beginning 2015. Because I feel like that would have been a very prevalent thing. I think this game could fit in to certain points in your life. For example, when you go through a breakup at the beginning of grad school and end up 100%ing The Witcher 3 because you didn't have anything else to do, so you put 300 hours into a single playthrough of Witcher 3 without any of the DLC even existing yet. Perhaps games like this would have helped buffer that,
Yeah.
if for no
Um
other reason than the message alone.
so if you want a similar vibe, like I see a Reddit post of somebody who's like searching for similar songs, and someone said churches.
Oh, I like churches. Shout out Lauren Mayberry.
So they said Churches and Tegan and Sarah have a lot of music that sounds similar. That is Neapolitan Panda. They posted that 5 years ago. So that is
And that's
the
churches with a V.
mm-hmm.
Churches.
Churches. Yeah,
Oh
so
yeah.
that's a similar vibe. If you've ever played the Tetris, it was a game on Game Pass. Tetris Connected, Tetris. It was like this weird, trippy version of Tetris that was also synth pop, and it's kind of similar to that. If anybody listening has ever played that version of Tetris, very good,
Interesting.
very interesting themes to explore. Because, and I think indie games get to do that
Sure. I
because
agree.
like AAA, it has to be big, bombastic, big boom, shoot gun,
Yeah.
wear the metaphors on your sleeve, which I appreciate as someone who sucks at context um, and subtext. But yeah, this game, it's I even me, I understood it by the time it reached the credits. I was like, oh my gosh, I get it. So I feel like that's a testament to what the game wants to do and get across.
Sure. So it's interesting because I find, frankly, that I have no interest in this game as a game whatsoever. However, the soundtrack, I'm absolutely convinced to listen to the soundtrack
That
for no
counts.
reason other than
That's
like, yeah, it's sure. I
that's a
mean,
half a point.
I will I will consume a portion of this game as a medium because I really like the band Churches quite a bit. I they come on if anybody has Sirius XM, the channel Alt Nation Churches comes on, I don't know, less frequently than they used to. Lauren Mayberry has some solo stuff that comes on, and she is obviously she's the singer of Churches, and her solo stuff is very similar to how Churches sounds. But if you've never listened to the band Churches, I'd recommend it. If for no other reason than they just are a bit different from how a lot of things sound because it's their music is pretty upbeat, but if you're paying attention past the melodies to the concepts being addressed in the lyrics, it's actually pretty heavy.
The
So
thing about
I'm a
this
big
game
fan.
that I might go back. You know what? I will go back and listen. There were lyrics,
Mm,
but there was so much frantic, like moving my character around the screen to collect all the hearts to try and get as high a score as I could that I really couldn't focus on the lyrics and what they were saying. But I have
sure.
an inkling that the lyrics definitely gave more context to what the game was trying to get across for sure. So I'll go back and listen to.
Were they in English?
I think so.
Yeah, we'll find out. Because that's like saying I'm going to go back and listen to the lyrics of the music in Clair Obscur and then realize that I don't speak French as well as I used to, and the made up language, which is like a hybrid mashup of French and Latin, is straight over my head.
That's a thing that's been happening where the some of my favorite soundtracks are games where the words are made up.
It's true.
Just not real.
It's true. Although, I mean, no, nope, we're not going to talk about Clair Obscur again. Nope. Nope. Moving on. Moving on. So, okay. So, Eldest Souls,
Okay, hit me.
published by United Label, who made other games such as Beyond Galaxyland, Tales of Iron 1 and 2, and Roki. Roki is also, I believe, on the PlayStation Plus games that you can download. Um, man, so by the title, you know pretty well off that it's gonna be a Souls like.
How how did I know?
Let me tell you. Before I get into explaining the game itself,
Mm-hmm.
to me, the progression of this game is better than any direct FromSoft game. And I say that because there are multiple skill trees that you can choose from and switch between that offer completely different play styles. Whereas in FromSoft games, your move set is dictated by the weapon you choose, but really the weapon you choose, that's like all you have to work with until Elden Ring, where you had Ashes of War, which kind of became a meta in and of themselves. Or you played as a mage, in which case you can equip whatever spells you want as long as you
Yeah.
have the memory slots for them.
Go
Whereas
Faith.
this game is like a top down 3D ish pixel action RPG that plays more like a boss rush than a FromSoft game.
Roguelike?
So think it is no,
Oh.
no, it is a boss rush action RPG with high difficulty. This game to me became the epitome of get good because there's not a lot of like regular enemies just in the overworld. Um, the very first boss that you fight as like your tutorial intro boss, here's mechanics, has two phases. Like who does that? It was absolutely wild. But let me tell you, man, it's once you beat it, which again I have patience issues. It's my biggest downfall with games like this. But once you beat it, when you get your first level up and you get to see how big the skill trees are and the way that you can progress them, there's so much depth and like replayability that can go into this, assuming you can actually beat the game. Because this game, the second boss after the tutorial boss, I cannot count how many times it took me to beat.
Nice.
It absolutely wrecked me over and over and over. And even once you win, you can choose to either retry it or exit. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna exit. There must be another place that I can go where I don't have to fight this yet. If it's like a Souls like where you can kind of go around it and progress. And like, nope, you have to go through it. Have to beat that boss to progress and move on to the next things.
Go through it. Can't go
Now
under.
that being said, there are places and things that you can interact with in the world. There are side quests. There's actually a pretty deep lore involved with this game. So this game is about a weird. I don't really want to call it an apocalyptic future, but like similar, where humans rebelled against their gods and imprisoned them in a citadel. And so you take on this warrior who is going and trying to investigate what is going on because this citadel has basically fallen to the gods again. And so things are starting to like seep out from the citadel and humanity is sending troops which are just getting absolutely obliterated. So in classic army of one fashion, you are effectively the hope. And a lot of things that I've seen from later game, which obviously is not um I can't speak to it, it's simply things I've seen. There's a lot of eldritch horror inspired things in this game.
Ooh.
It is dark, it's gritty,
I like
and
that.
it's high pace, high action, but like risk reward. So think if Bloodborne, because there's even a mechanic where if you do this charge attack into an enemy for a brief bit of time, as you hit, you can regen some health. But think if Bloodborne enemies could do Demon Souls damage.
They can. They hit
They
hard.
can, but
But
like
the difference
you
was
know
is
what I
that
mean though.
Bloodborne had the rally mechanic, which it sounds like this game does.
Not exactly, because you have to do a full charge, which then lunges into them, and then once you hit them, your blade kind of there goes this like frenzy state where the damage you do, you heal a certain percentage of it. And so, as I recall, with some skill trees, there are builds based around that. The build that I was specking into is every successful hit, a like wind phantom sword comes up and then like rips through the enemy and does extra damage. So basically, every hit was good for one or two other hits.
Nice.
trying to maximize my damage. But man, let me tell you, there's some bosses that you can't go that aggressive, and you have to completely rebuild your setup and go to a defensive setup simply because unless you want to bang your head up against the wall to like frame perfect some of this stuff, you're better off just figuring out how to tank the hits and battle of attrition. But the game is so fast paced that you just there's only so much you can do.
So their invincibility frames. I'm assuming there's a dodge.
There's absolutely a dodge. Your dodge is tied to your stamina bar. Your stamina bar at the beginning of the game is in 3 pips, and a dodge takes up a full pip.
Ooh.
So you can't just mash dodge. You can only do it at most 3 times in a row before you have to run around. I will say enemies do more often than not have like the choreograph line of where they're gonna go, and so all you really have to memorize is like the width and speed of the attack, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
But it also, I mean, you have to know the timing. You have to be patient. You can't if you try to do your charge dash into them and you're like a frame too early, you're gonna get hit in the backdraft of whatever attack they did, and it will do a crap ton of damage to you. And then rather than getting your berserk state where you can mash through them, like they can't. And now you're running around with your tail between your legs because you can't figure out what to do. Um, it's the art itself for being a 16-bit like HD pixel game. The art itself is probably some of the most detailed pixel art I've seen
I like pixel art.
in a game like this. And I mean, it's excuse me, it's not the 16-bit pixel art akin to like the HD 2D thing that Square Enix is doing
Yeah.
now. It's more, I mean, it's more akin to how Dead Cells art is, where everything around it is just pixel, but it's that top-down view similar to how Turnip Boy robs a bank was. So similar perspective there, a little bit further out. Um,
Okay.
and so
So
this game is a wonderful blend of difficult, but you feel yourself getting better at it, and then you're reminded, oh wait, that skill tree is wild. I am gonna have to do a lot of like figuring and fiddling and playing around with my build to see how I even want to build this, because you can actually switch between your combat style mid combat
ooh, on the
and
fly. I like
activate
it.
different trees mid combat with just the press of a single button once you've leveled up enough to be able to spec into them. So I mean there's so many ways that you can go about combat. It's this is literally, if you're somebody who likes to like get in the lab and try a bunch of different builds and see how you can maybe like go from one to the other in certain circumstances, this is the perfect game for you to do that, because the fights last long enough that you can really try to figure it out unless you let yourself get glassed, which I mean,
How is it? How's respecking? Like, how encouraged are different builds? Do you get a ton of points to pass out, or like?
I didn't get far enough into it to know. um I leveled up twice in the amount of time that I played. um but it seems as though you are encouraged to spec however you feel you want to play. It almost feels like the game is made to be beat however you want it to, as far as your build is concerned. You just have to bring your skill to be able to get it done. So I don't know if they're technically, I didn't take the time to look it up. I don't know if there is a meta, like
Mm,
what is the best build per boss. I'm sure there is, but this is one of those games where if you like your play style and you gravitate towards it, you will figure out how to beat whatever you're playing. And so this honestly for me, like I said, the difficulty of this game absolutely bodied me. This is a game that I am going to keep installed on my PlayStation because it's one of those games that once you've really gotten into it, it stays in your mind and makes you want to go back and try new things and try it again. And that for me is very strange, because I mean there's a lot of games that we've done on this show that I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed Dungeons of Hinterberg. I really enjoyed Dead Cells. I've really enjoyed Nine Souls in a lot of ways, and I have almost immediately uninstalled them strictly because there's other stuff that I'm doing.
Yeah.
But this game for me, like I want to see what it's like as I get better at it and as I progress further into the game with the level up system because the world itself is so compelling. Like this idea of we imprisoned the gods, but the gods figured out how to get out, and now we're trying to re-establish ourselves. It is, I mean, it's a bit cliche, but it's in the context of a boss rush type game, a lot of fun.
Fun is fun is all I need, to be honest, man. Like I
Yeah.
like a good story. Love a good story. Love a
Yep.
good world.
Hmm.
You could have the best looking world in ever, but if it's
Hmm.
not fun to be in it, I don't care. I don't care.
The the common, like I guess, recurring motif I see in a lot of reviews for this game is punishingly difficult but rewarding. And so
That's fun.
if you like dark stories, if you like weird settings, if you like games that you can't just face roll your way through, this is a fantastic game. Like to the point, I mean, not that they're a reputable source whatsoever, but I mean, if IGN is willing to give a 2D 16-bit indie action RPG an 8 out of 10, it can't be that bad.
Mayhaps. I like that. Yeah, no, I'm always down to clown with games where you can actively feel yourself getting better with for sure.
It also in its positives, it has those kinds of boss encounters that when the boss like phase transitions, you just sit there for a second and go, "Man, that's so cool."
uh,
Right before it like two tap claps you all the way back to to phase one all over again. It's
yeah, I'm also a
oh
sucker for
man,
eldritch things, which is
yeah.
why um I like eldritch thing. It's I'm weird when it comes to like scary things. I don't like horror movies. I like horror games, but my favorite horror games other than Resident Evil are ones of Eldritch horror where like the idea of abstract, you can't quite grasp it. It's beyond your comprehension type horror, like what is that one on the oil rig? I beat it not that long ago. Um it
Um,
was Still Wakes the Deep.
that's the
Loved
one.
that game. Loved that game. Voice acting was phenomenal. Loved that game. But games that touch on the concept of like, hey, you can't understand what's going on, and you're never going to. It's just interesting to me because maybe
Hmm.
I'm weird, which is why Tainted Grail has been so much fun. Because there's some
Yeah,
eldritch stuff in Tainted Grail, dude.
yeah.
And the eldritch horror alone is what sold me on definitely wanting to explore the game for
I
sure.
recommend it. It took me by surprise because one, I didn't expect. I mean, I've played so many Souls-born, Souls-like games at this point, especially now with this show. The fact that I could still get absolutely, face tucked backwards by some of these bosses was so frustrating to me that maybe it was just my ego getting in the way,
Probably.
but definitely. But it was just it's fun.
Fun is good.
There's like it's one of those things where when you lose a fight, you're mad, but you're mad because you screwed up.
Yep,
And
no
then you
one
get
as
that
bad
one
as
that's
you.
like, "Ooh, that's really close. That's really close." And then you make a mistake.
And
And
you
it's
learn.
just, man, and you learn or don't. That's
Or
up to
don't.
you
If you're
or
patient enough,
don't.
you'll learn. And let's see. I'm curious. How long to beat Eldest Soul? So according to how long to beat, wow. Eldest Souls, according to How Long to Beat, main plus sides, 7 hours. It's not a long game at all.
Interesting.
That's magnificent. I I
I
want
assume
to I
that's
want to
if you don't get blown back.
sure, but I want to talk about that because
Mm-hmm.
we have some talking points to cover.
Mm-hmm.
Because wow, I did not expect the game like that to be that short. Um,
I didn't either.
the Fallout creator said something interesting. I want to know what you think.
Okay.
He says, I would rather finish 6 20-hour games than one 100-hour game.
So
What do you think?
there's a lot, like for me as a player, there's a lot to unpack in that statement because I am somebody who can take a 35-hour game and I can make it be a 100-hour game just because I thoroughly explore everything and then some. So I mean, in that sense, I don't agree, but I don't disagree. Now, that being
He's
said,
he
in the context
specified
of a game that is narrative driven and lasts for that long, where there's just so much game that it takes you 100 hours to get through everything and they kind of force you to do it, I agree because they're so. I agree because I like the idea of a game that knows how not to overstay its welcome, right? Concise storytelling. It doesn't bog itself down with like weird dangling threads that it feels the need to tie up in obscure ways. Like those games, like which we'll say it as it is. Like the Tales series is a great series, but the Tales series to me has an incredibly uncanny way of overstaying its welcome.
I don't remember which one it was. I don't know if it was Zillia 2, or
Celia did
one
it.
of the many that I've played. I've played so many Tales games. There was one dungeon. It was the final dungeon, and
Hmm.
I was fully leveled. I was maxed at this point,
That was Grace's F.
and I got to the final dungeon. I was like, I don't need to fight anything. I don't care. I don't need to fight anything. I'm high enough level. They're not giving
Hmm.
me anything I need. I'm done.
Hmm.
So I sprinted through the entirety of the dungeon. Still took me over an hour to finish this final dungeon with zero fighting other than the required fights. And
Hmm.
I'm just like, why? But I think what
Yeah.
he's saying is he would rather finish 6 Chrono Triggers than one Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Like, obviously, he's not specifically saying that, but I think
Yeah.
that is the point that he is making, where it's such a large game. A game has to be designed so specifically to keep your attention for that long. And so I'd rather play a bunch of shorter games that are just really good, really quality, really concise than one game that just big for big's sake. Like
So
if
I
you
I agree, but there is a large caveat to that that I think needs to be addressed. Because if I am somebody who has plenty of time but does not have plenty of resources to get new games, then that one game that I can potentially play for 80 to 120 hours, that's the game I look for if I can buy maybe one game every month to 2 months.
sure, but doesn't isn't that where like Game Pass comes in and PS Plus come in?
It can be, but like we're still making certain types of assumptions with that, right? Uh, If I think about how I grew up, right? I did not. Now, admittedly, game things like Games Pass didn't exist when we were growing up, so a grain of salt. But if I had had the ability, like I could get one game, and if that one game, if I could play that game for enough hours to last me until I could get another game, then that's exactly what I wanted.
But you made
And
the games
so,
last.
I mean, kind of. Kingdom Hearts 2 took as long as it took. You know what I mean? Final Fantasy X took as long as Final Fantasy X took. So, like, there's something to that. But there's those games that, like, there's enough content that you can play for that long. So I don't disagree with his statement. I'm also getting to a place where I would almost rather play those shorter games, even though all of my favorite games take at least 50 hours. Um, However, I do not say that that is my preference at the at decrying those games that are longer and do overstay their welcome.
If there is a purpose for it, yes, they have their place. But
Sure.
I think it's like people aren't going to agree with this take, but like Persona 5, it's a long game, but there's no there you can't the game is as long as it is. Like there's no way to truly extend the game other than staying in a dungeon for an excessively long time or going to Mementos for an excessively long time. But even then, when you go to Mementos, unless you're going up and down and up and down and up and down in that area, the Memento stops until you reach other story points. So Persona 5 is I played on easy. I beat it in 70 hours, and yes, I maxed out bonds. I not all because you can't, but I did all the things. I beat it in like 70 hours. Everybody's like it's 100 hours, and that's before the extra semester. I did on story, and I tried to do it as quick as painlessly as I could, but like that game, everything you were doing was pushing the plot forward. So that's a long game that has a purpose for being that long.
Yeah, I think Atlas has that pretty well figured out because like we could say the same thing about Metaphor. I spent a lot of time farming, but Metaphor took me like exactly 100 hours to beat. I could
Yeah,
have probably beat it faster than that, but I farmed quite a bit.
so like
Um,
that game you made it as long as you wanted it to, but like it's
yeah,
still no matter what you did, you were gonna beat it within a certain amount of time.
yeah,
I don't know. It's an interesting conversation to have. I agree there are purposes to longer games because people do have the time and maybe not the
yeah.
funds, and that's fine. But with streaming being what it is and existing in the capacity it does, like if you have if you have money to buy a game, unless you're getting like super old used games, like you can get a streaming service, play as much as you want. Like if you pay for a streaming service for the equivalent of a new game, $70. What are we looking at for PS Plus? What is it for the year? Like 120 for the year or something like that. For the highest tier, I think it was.
It might be more than that. I don't know.
Maybe like 135. But for the price of two games, you could get a full year of PS Plus, or you could get a full year of Game Pass, and like money isn't really something that you need to focus on. You have just games that you can play now. But yeah, no, I think it's interesting that you said there's both sides. But you also wanted to talk about Game Pass itself.
I do. So I don't know if you had seen these comments. There was an article that was published on Games Radar 3 days ago that actually I got a notification of on my phone, which is rare when that happens. Um, but Shuhei Yoshida, who was the former PlayStation boss, feels as though games or subscription services like Games Pass can be dangerous if they become the primary way that studios release games. Noting that while he does acknowledge that there may be some bias because of his ties to PlayStation, he feels as though PlayStation and PlayStation Plus's model is quote unquote healthier because PlayStation never does simultaneous day one releases onto the PlayStation Plus service. They always sell their games outright and then may eventually bring them to PlayStation Plus as an offering. I'm
I
curious as to your take on that because I I
I
feel
don't
kind of strongly, but I want to hear what you have to say.
I don't know. Because I looked up an article on trueachievements.com that talked about that same thing because I saw you wanted to bring it up. And he said if the only way for people to play games is through subscriptions, that's dangerous because what type of games can be created will be dictated by the owner of the subscription services.
Hmm.
And it's really risky because there always must always be fresh new ideas tried by small developers that create the next wave of development. But if the big companies dictate what games can be created, I don't think that will advance the industry. That statement is correct. If big companies dictate what games can be created, then yeah, they're going to decide to do the big budget, make us tons of money, use existing IPs thing. Why would game companies dictate what games can be created because of streaming services? That's what I'm confused about.
I mean, I don't know. My thing with that is if somebody on the inside has that to say, then that immediately sends up flags for me about what some of these conversations might be. Especially in the context of if we consider, two games that have been around forever and still see a ton of traffic, right? Fortnite and GTA 5, specifically the online component,
Sure.
right? These live service games as a service, which I could get on a soapbox about for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
but they effectively last forever, right? How many of those games can somebody really play? You have a finite amount of time. So let's say I'm a game streamer and I've built my whole life around Fortnite. And one day, studio says, "Well, these other games have come out. They've cut in too much to our bottom line. We're pulling the plug on all Fortnite servers."
Obvious theoretical, but yes, continue.
Obvious theoretical, but like I've seen it happen with live service games. That's unfortunately it's the cornerstone of the mobile gaming industry. Is those games can just one day vanish, right? Now for some of these people who've poured God knows how much money and hours and built in life for games, gone. So now they have to try to find a new forever game. This is a bit off topic, right? I've kind of circled around the point, but in the context of these game streaming services, I worry not so much for the player, but I worry for the studio,
I mean, there's already been tons of layoffs as it is, which sucks.
right? And so I fear what if all of these great games are being released onto streaming services directly. I don't know, I've never looked it up, what the concurrent like Games Pass players were for Clair Obscur. Clair
Mm,
Obscur obviously sold 33 million copies in
3
33
point,
days, which
3.3.
or 3.3 million, I'm sorry, 3.3
33
million
million
copies
copies
in
would be
33 days.
crazy.
All bad. Um, but I wonder how much bigger that number would be if Games Pass wasn't involved.
I don't know that it would be because here's the other side of that token is would it have garnered as much attention if it wasn't free on there?
I mean, that's an impossible conversation to have.
There's no
Um,
way.
there's no way that we could ever have that conversation because that's impossible to know. But I where it concerns me is as a studio and then as a consumer on the back end. If this is going straight onto a streaming service, I know that I'm going to lose X percentage of potential revenue because there's these people who can play it for free. Now, I obviously have no idea how much game studios make in residuals relative to Games Pass downloads, amount of time spent playing. I'm sure there's some type of sharing system for that, but I can't imagine it's the same as I bought this game, I gave you, 70, $80, and now you have that, right? Maybe it is. I don't know.
I
But
don't
I
know.
worry that if games keep releasing to streaming services first, is that part of what might keep driving game costs upward? Because if they're available day one for free on a streaming service, they have to sell more units at higher prices to cover their expenses.
So what I don't know, the starting point for that, and we're not going to dive too deep because it's a lot of numbers and
And theoretical things we know nothing about.
uh, how does getting your game on Game Pass work? Do you get a
I don't know.
cut of downloads? Like, does the amount of downloads determine how much Microsoft pays you? Like, do they pay you like a lump sum at the beginning to put your game? Like, do you pay that? I don't know how any of that
I
works.
assume I would assume you pay them to host it. And then I imagine I mean I don't know, I've never seen one of the contracts, but if I was looking at it, I would think depending on what the relative hype of the title would it be after X many downloads, now you will get X% of this number relative to what the subscriptions are and times the number of people who've downloaded it.
So
But
someone,
Xbox needs to make its money first.
so so someone 7 years ago, Joe versus you, said Microsoft pays them. It's the info isn't public. It depends on how big the game is. They either pay them a large chunk at once or pennies on the dollar for every download. Um, Exposure: the small percent of people with Game Pass will be playing, which pushes it up on the charts. People see their friends playing, more videos created about it, word of mouth. People want to buy it. Microtransactions: people may be more willing to purchase them since they're not spending money, so you're more willing to buy microtransactions for a game that you didn't actually purchase because it's through Game Pass. And Microsoft most likely pays for a good chunk of the marketing which displays their games with Game Pass. And there's also the aspect of once the game leaves Game Pass, sometimes they'll have sales for that game that's leaving Game Pass, which if you tried it and you liked it and you want to keep playing it, it's on sale, you're more likely to buy it. So it's
It's hard to
that's
say. I
it's hard
think
to say.
what I think I can say, I think I can see Yoshida-san's point about it potentially being dangerous. I what I do think, however, is that PlayStation Plus and Games Pass have to exist at the same time. Because I think if it goes too much into one or the other, I think right now they're giving each other balance with how the releases are for like their first party stuff. So like Xbox Studio first party stuff goes straight onto Games Pass day one most of the
Yep.
time.
Yep.
Whereas PlayStation's first party stuff is sold at its normal, first party studio price and then eventually put onto and permanently hosted on PlayStation. I think those two systems have to coexist because I think it gives a good balance. Whereas I really do feel like if we end up going one way or another, both could on their own contribute to game prices continue to just skyrocket.
Potentially. The other thing that PlayStation does that is a big part of it is that they offer their games are they offer free monthly games too on top of
Yes.
their
Which
collection,
you own,
which you
so long
own,
as you maintain PlayStation Plus services.
which Xbox
Now,
stopped.
that, however, is a whole conversation for another day because there are so many people who are up in arms about how bad the monthly offerings have been on PlayStation lately.
I'm not
I'm
gonna
one of those
lie,
people.
it's
They've been
bad,
terrible. They've
bad.
been terrible. If you're going to continue to offer these, you have to offer games that people care about. They used to, and they have just stopped.
You're better
And
off
it's been a
just
long time.
if you have a gaming PC, you're better off just doing Humble Bundle. To be completely honest,
It's true. I mean, because then at least you own them for
yeah,
pennies on the dollar of what you would have played anyway. But I mean, that's a conversation for another time.
yeah.
Interesting dialogues to be had about all of these. If anybody who is listening has any strong feelings, or even if you happen to have any knowledge, please feel free to drop us a comment or anything on Instagram, YouTube, Discord, wherever. These conversations, I feel like they have to be had more honest, more openly, more often, and more honestly than they are, because I feel as though the gaming community is in an interesting place where we are starting to see how how the industry is evolving and how it is going to impact us as consumers. And I think we need to all find some type of discourse. What that doesn't necessarily mean we all need to agree on things, but we need to be able to engage in this type of discourse on the state of the industry relative to where we are as consumers. Because if we allow things to go too far in one direction or the other, I think we're starting to see that like critical mass tipping point where the gaming industry could completely implode or not. If we keep losing jobs and we keep succumbing to brain rot as an industry, the quality of what we're seeing is going to continue to decrease. The cost is going to continue to increase. And anybody with any type of knowledge or common sense realizes that worsening quality and increasing prices means trouble. So, and I think the biggest thing that we can do is continue to have these conversations with each other in as public of an arena as possible, so that maybe, hopefully, at some point, they will get in front of people who can actually do something about it. If we had more Sandfalls and more Larians, I think we would have fewer Ubisofts.
Dang.
But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. Did you wanna? We're about an hour and 10 minutes in. I know that
No,
there's.
oh man. Uh, it's okay. So Ryan's laughing because Randy Pitchford, he's back at it. He's trying to backtrack everything that he said, relative to what true fans are. Although his way of backtracking it is saying, "I'm sorry that what I said offended you."
Oh no, the word was triggered you.
Triggered. You're so right. I'm sorry that I triggered all of you with the things that I said. If there's never been a more condescending way to apologize to a player base than that, I'm gonna leave it there, because otherwise I'm gonna get way too hot again.
So
And
angry.
I love Borderlands too much as a consumer to evoke the ire of Gearbox as a whole, because the last thing I need to do is get blacklisted by Gearbox, when I'd really love to have a conversation with somebody who'd listen to me. Although, based on other content creators that I've seen, watched, and listened to, those conversations don't really go anywhere and don't really even happen in the first place. So it's neither here nor there. All I know is I love Borderlands as a product and as a game franchise, even though it's been terribly mismanaged and seems to have been getting progressively worse since Borderlands 2 by considerable margins. However, if you're going to apologize, and this goes for all things in life, ladies and gentlemen, if you're going to apologize, you cannot apologize for the way that somebody interpreted what you said. You apologize for what you said. You explain what you were thinking, understand where their point of view came from, and speak that in the future I will try to be more clear with the things that I am saying so that this can't happen again. I am grateful to all of you for allowing us to do the things that we do.
Don't be
And this is the way that you apologize.
don't be rational. What's wrong with you?
But I'm now going to say, in just my own personal life, that the concept of the gaslighting apology is called pitchfording. And we're just going to go ahead and move on. Thank you guys for watching.
With that said, next time I will be I'm so angry. I was playing Rivals with a friend of mine, and Darren was listening. So he heard this exchange, and I was sitting there, and I was just like, "What should I try to do for the next episode? Give me a genre." And he gave me one. I was like, "Oh, that's not on there." And he goes like, "Oh, driving, racing." I was like, "Oh, cool. Let me check PS Plus." And I made the mistake of reading out the titles.
You sure did, buddy.
And so the one that he challenged me to do is Car Mechanic Simulator by Red Dot Games. Let me do you a favor and just read some of the games that they're no. Let me no. First off, let me say, I'm curious to see how this goes. I know nothing about cars. I know nothing about cars. You push gas, car go. That's it. You put gas in tank, it makes the car move. You change your oil. when you need to change your oil. Windshield wipers suck. There's a lot of things about cars that I don't know. And I think I believe they're Polish. Red Dot Games is a Polish developer because they have games such as Zaki Rozrabiaki Tulek WS2, everybody's favorite game, Rally Poland, Walachtki Mok Maginski. I don't know how to say any of these things. So I'm so curious to see how this is gonna go. The one thing I will say that I'm looking forward to is that from what I've seen from screenshots, the game doesn't look too bad. Darren,
I need you to confirm whether or not you can smell toast right now, because that is the sound of somebody having a stroke,
okay,
and I
fine.
just
Darren,
need to make
Darren,
sure.
go to red.games.pl, and I want you to go to their gaming page and you read some of the games that they've made. Let's see if you do any better. While he's doing that, next week Darren will convince me to try Tunic, developed by Isometric Core Games, published by Finji. They are also known for Night in the Woods. Now, full transparency, I have played Tunic. However, I've only gotten like 10 minutes in, so I don't really know what there is in the game past that. So I'm looking forward to that happening. As always, thank you for listening. Please follow and connect with us on all our social medias. Convince Me Gaming or Convince Me Media will bring us up. Please subscribe, leave reviews, follow us, send in suggestions, talk with us, chat with us. TikTok, I think, is our most active, other than YouTube and Spotify, which are weekly uploads. But we try to
Mhm.
get some thoughts out on TikTok every now and then of just things that we think of headlines that we see and articles and games that we're looking at and playing. And it's we've gotten some comments. Some people have been interacting with us. It's a lot of fun to just talk about these things. But before we sign off, Darren, please, what are some games that Red Dot Games is known for?
Oh well, thank you for asking. There's German lowriders. I can read that. There's ski with a smiley face emoticon, and that's an emoticon, children. That is colon close parentheses.
Not
That's
emoji.
that's
Colon.
that's ski. Yes,
Why don't you
emoticon.
read some of
The
the
precursor. So I'm wondering if this is like a. Ooh, there's mole, great adventure, absolutely. Foxy Fox, reindeer adventure,
okay,
paintball
I can read
extreme.
those. Read the Polish ones.
So I'm wondering if this whole Pluzaki Rożabiaki thing, because that's the beginning of like most of their games. Is this a series?
It
Because
might
it
be.
kind of looks. Tell me why it kind of looks like a Freddy Fish situation. Except then you go to page one, and you get Pluzaki Rożabiaki Race right next to Ride 'em Low.
What do you think WS2 stands for? I don't know. It's a cat holding a die.
But see, that's
Fluzaki Rozoviaki.
Zdrabka. That's Zdrabka WS2. So that's, I mean, that's got to be different than Tulek WS2, which, I mean, clearly that's the difference of like a whole word, whatever.
Do you think they know CD Projekt Red? CD Projekt Red's Polish, isn't it? Pretty sure.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Fluzaki Rozoviaki is a race, the race game. That joint looks dope.
Well, Puzaki Rożabiaki is the beginning of every single one of their titles.
It's got to mean something.
It's gotta mean something.
Yeah, no, they are Polish because their website is either you can put it in English or Polish. So interesting. I wonder if there's any crossover. Probably not. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I'm willing to bet no. But you know,
Send help. I'm so terrified of having to play Car Mechanic Simulator because there's a lot of menus and things in there that I know not. I'm just gonna look at it and I'm gonna be
just
scratching my
just
head.
just make sure that when you install it, you don't accidentally default your language to Polish,
I'm.
because nothing would be funnier than you telling me that you couldn't progress because you accidentally set a game about which you know nothing in a language that you can't read.
Dude, that's a nightmare.
While that would be my favorite thing that's ever happened, um, you know, that's
That would
let's at
be
least try to make it a fighting chance, huh?
I'm gonna bore a hole in my head from all the head scratching I'm gonna do. But with that said, thank you for listening, and as always,
Are you convinced?